Hello, hello, hello. I am Scott Stanfield, the modern longevitarian. Welcome to episode 92. Thank you for watching on Spirituality Gone Wild. Today's topic is your body should match your frame. But before we do get into today's topic, let's talk about and let's take care of a little business. Harvard Business Review posted on Instagram just a couple weeks ago that 85% of the survey respondents said their general well-being has declined since the start of COVID-19. 50% of the 85 have had a decline in their mental health. The longer I do this, the more I realize the truth behind the quote by Bruce Lee: the body follows the mind. The longer I do this, the more I move towards teaching and coaching mindset before anything else. Your software drives your hardware. The way you think determines how you act, how you feel, and also your body composition. I'm taking on new coaching clients for group sessions. If mindset, lifestyle, health span coaching is something you're looking for by someone like me who drove the struggle bus. I've lost 40 pounds twice. I've lost less than that more times. My weight has yo-yoed as an adult more than I would love to talk about, but I do share that online, and I share that with you guys, and I share that here and there. So send me a DM or go to modernlongevitarian.com/coaching. You can also get there by going to strongforlonger.com. It'll take you to Modern Longevitarian. So strongforlonger.com will forward you to Modern Longevitarian because that's just easier to spell than Modern Longevitarian. You can set up a free discovery call with me today. All right, so let's talk about tomorrow's episode with Myron Clark, president and CEO of the Regal brand. He has his origins just like me in the restaurant industry. He has made a massive pivot in the last year, and he oversees the development of the Regal brand's family of companies that are organized in 6 different divisions. Tune in tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Now, I wrote this in the description. Could you see a tank body on a Ferrari chassis? What would happen? It would just crush it. It would sit on the ground. What about a Volkswagen Beetle on a Chevrolet heavy-duty truck frame? It wouldn't match, right? All those things wouldn't match. A small frame should not be overloaded with too much weight from fat and or muscle, right? And vice versa. A large frame should not be underloaded with too little weight. Each of us are unique, and we should be looking at this on a foundational level. I say starting with supporting structure. Now, as in most shows, right? Most shows, okay, that I do, I'm going to spur thought here. I'm going to ask questions and give you some information for you to go do a little digging. That's what my show is really about. I'm not about giving a prescription or, other than my sleep book, right, that you can go download at strongforlonger.com. Go to sleep.strongforlonger.com to give you 7 steps on how to make an outstanding landing, which will help you get the best night's sleep. Or the book's going to be so damn boring, it's going to bore you to death and you go to sleep that way too. So, by the way, we've had 2 comments in here. Hey, Kelly, thanks. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching, and Hope. Also afternoon. Thanks for watching as well. So, thanks for being here, and putting in your comments. Now, let's talk about this. It's something I've thought about for a long time, right? And like, for instance, Bruce Lee and Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? They've had basically said the same thing. They said that the body follows the mind, and they said it slightly differently. But think about this. When my son asked me the other day, this show is going to be a little bit off the cuff. I have some scripted things I want to go over, but I don't want to talk about this. He said, Dad, you've been dieting and exercise for a long time. Why don't you look like Tony Horton did when he was in his 40s? And Tony Horton is, the trainer who created P90X and that whole series through the Beachbody companies and our Beachbody company and those type of things. And I had to explain to him, it's like, I only work out 20, 30 minutes a day to, lifting weights, or body weight exercises, 20, 30 minutes a day, 2 to 3 days a week. And I came back with multiple things, right? So I'm not in a gym. I'm not on a squat rack. I'm not, when I was in my 20s, squatting 415 pounds and, on the Atkins diet and, eating a lot of protein and those type of things. Eat a lot less protein these days than I ever did back then, and so there's multiple things to this, right? That comes into building muscle and building weight, and that type of stuff. And so I'd come back to him and like, this is the reason why, this is the reason why. And then my wife, who was a personal trainer for 15 years, and she said, Tony Horton makes his living at being a personal trainer, spends hours in the gym and does those type of things. Now you look at him now in his early 60s, he and I look more alike now than what he did in his 40s when he recorded P90X when he was 45, 46 years old. Now I turn 49 in just, gosh, I think 12 days from now, right? I'm gonna have a sip of my second and last cup of coffee today. Which, by the way, when you should stop drinking caffeine is in the book, The Outstanding Landing, How to Get the Sleep of Your Dreams, 7 Steps to Sound Sleep. And so so the thing is that I see myself, my frame, more like a Bruce Lee than I do an Arnold Schwarzenegger. As you can see, I don't have super broad shoulders. I'm not built that way. So how can I optimize for my particular frame size, right? How can I optimize that? So I see myself more as a Bruce Lee than I do an Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, if you're a woman, you're going to have to like find your own, your own models to look at. And when I say models, I mean people to model that have the same body type as you, right? And do that. And so think of extra weight on your frame and the damage that is done. According to Harvard Health, in the US alone, surgeons perform more than 600,000 knee replacements and about 330,000 hip replacements each year. Now, some of this could be from a mechanical damage, right? Like, for instance, when my dad was in the military, he was taking their martial arts class to become Army Airborne and tore every ligament in his left knee. He's now 72, right? Turned 73 in this year. Cancer survivor, all those type of things. Went to Vietnam War, all those type of stuff. And my point being is, he that is a reason for him to have a knee replacement that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today. Arthritis, we can talk about the people are getting knee replacements and hip replacements because of arthritis. But I think that would have to do to lifestyle choices that fit into the modern longevitarian pillar system that people could have made over the years to do that. My right knee, when I go upstairs, makes a little noise, a little snap, crackle, pop, right? And I'm working on that, trying to figure out exactly what's causing that. And it could be damage. I've had damage to my knees from doing different things, getting thrown at 80 miles an hour racing go-karts, right? And getting just, doing that type of stuff. Not having a poor diet for the beginning part of my life, before I really started, at age 31, really started focusing on, diet for long term. I'd had a really healthy diet by those standards in the mid 90s when I was in my 20s, but then went way off course. So most of my life, I've had a really bad diet. And so those things build up and over time cause that type of stuff. But the best thing is our body can repair itself. So let's talk about this, right? And I was a director of food and beverage at a hospital where Dr. Hoffman and his Arthritis Institute did knee replacements multiple a week. And I got to visit those patients and talk to them about different things. But okay, if you had an overload, let's use, and I raced go-karts for years and I love cars and all those things. So I'm gonna use cars and engines and suspensions and chassis and matching those type of things as an example for your body, right? So you want your body to match the frame or your body to match the chassis. If you got any questions along the way, comments or any of that type of stuff, this is something that I've talked about for a long time and I've never shared online anywhere. So I'm looking for feedback on this, what you think about this, if it spurs any thoughts, if you see this or any of those type of things. Now, I've heard for years, and I'll just back up, that you could tell your frame size about wrapping your fingers around this. And if your fingers touch, it tells what size frame you have, right? So my thumb overlaps my middle finger here when I wrap it around my wrist. So I have a smaller frame. Right. So I don't weigh a lot, unless, my ideal weight is about 160 to 165 pounds and I'm almost 5'10". Right. So I'm very light for my size. Right. I don't carry a lot of weight that way. And so when I actually, when I slim down and I forgot to grab my body fat percentage caliper. I wanted to show you that, and I forgot to grab that because I was running late, grabbing a hat, throwing my glasses on because I was going to be in front of the computer, right? But it's really really an interesting thing. When it comes to getting that. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about this. All right. Your body should match your frame, or your body should match your skeletal structure or their chassis the same way a car does, right? So like, why do they put in a big SUV? Why do they put stiffer springs, different shocks, a V8 versus a 4-cylinder? Why don't you ever see like a Toyota Sequoia with a Toyota 4-cylinder? Toyota 4-cylinders are great engines, last hundreds of thousands of miles, but they don't put them in an SUV that weighs 4,000 pounds because it can't pull it up the hill, right? So you got to think about the power and the horsepower to weight ratio and the stress your engine will be under and your systems will be under if you have too much weight for your frame and your body and all those type of things. We had a comment come in from Kim. When I got off simple carbs, my joints got better. Absolutely, right? There's so many things that, because when you get off simple carbs, there's things that happen, like your body can click into ketosis, and so there's more things that are happening on that front and allow for. And then also hydration is a big piece of this, a puzzle too, Kim, where your body will pull fluid from your joints that are lubricants from that. So we could talk about all that type of stuff if you're dehydrated, right? So you got to think about this, right? You think about why isn't an engine from a bus, right? You can see this in movies and stuff like that. An engine from a bus in a really small car, 2-seater car, right? So the engine has to match, as well, right? And so, like, one of my favorite cars that I would have if money was no object or anything is called a Monster Miata, right? A Miata has a 4-cylinder engine in it. Mazda Miata convertible. They've been around for a long time, and I owned one back in the mid 90s, right? Loved it, and I got the first one with the big engine, right? I also had a turbocharged Volkswagen Beetle in 2002, 2000, around that about that time frame. Now I have a supercharged mini convertible that I love driving during the summer, right? And so horsepower to weight ratio based off the supercharger and those type of things, right? And so I love small cars. I grew up racing go-karts. I love these ones with high horsepower in relation to the weight. So horsepower to weight ratio. A lot of my workouts are built off horsepower to weight ratio. I'm not looking to build bulk. I'm looking to build strength and based off my frame size, right? And so let's just talk about these things, and I'll just let me look at my notes here that I put together. All right. And then we'll talk about, is a scale the best way to determine your health? Is BMI, body fat percentage, or waist to hip ratio? We'll talk about those things, and we'll get into waist to hip ratio because I think that's one of the best ways to look at this. They're all flawed in multiple ways, and we can talk about that. We'll talk about some food for thought, and then we're just going to kind of break this down as we go through about comparing your body and matching your body, your engine, your systems to your frame. Right. And then how that can work together. And then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll go on with our days. I think I'm going to do a little Wim Hof action today and go for a hike and do that. And I'm excited. And I'm going to be on Saf Buxey's show at 1 p.m. So if you're watching here, so I'm going to be on Saf's show today. He was on my show, and we're going to go over my story, my type of stuff, those type of things that we have. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. So, so tune in on my channel here on my Facebook page. I'll be on that as well. So, because he tagged all those type of things. So I'm going to be on my Facebook page, or Saf, if you're a normal watcher or listener and watch his show, I'll be on there as well. All right. So we talked about weight, right? So think of the impact on your suspension, right? If you carry too much muscle or too much fat, right? We talked about the connection between that and how much wear and tear can happen on your frame, your skeleton, your joints, those type of things by carrying too much weight, right? Even muscle, right? That's where BMI. I remember when I was a director of food and beverage at a hospital, our head dietitian, Dion, asked me, she said, "Where are you at on BMI scale?" She goes, "You're pretty high, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm actually 20, 24, 25. For those of you who don't know this, anything above 25, you're considered to be overweight. Okay. Now here I am. I just lost 40 pounds. I'm turning 40. I'm 40 years old, lost 40 pounds. And I am, because of the muscle on my body, the muscle I built by working out, I'm at 25 on the BMI scale. So BMI, if you have any muscle on your body that you've built, is not going to be a good way to indicate whether you're overweight or not. It is not a great indicator. So pay attention to that, right? And don't use BMI. The scale itself, the scale is not a good way to tell if you're healthy or not. It's because what you're doing is that you're looking at, okay, how much do I weigh? How much is gravity pulling down on me, right? That's not the best way to tell either if you are healthy. Because that doesn't tell you how much muscle and fat and all those things are happening, right? It gives you just a score and relative score that you can test. Now, there are one thing that has happened. There's people who've lost 40 pounds and kept it off for 6 years or more. One of the things that they've done to keep it off is step on a scale every morning. It is a good general indicator to tell how much you weigh and those type of things, but it doesn't break down how much fat you have and those type of things. And we don't even think about this. Let's say I weigh 170 pounds. And let's say that I'm 100, at 10% body fat, which would be considered healthy, right? 10% body fat at 170 pounds, that's 17 pounds of fat that I carry on my body, right? Think about the calories that is that. We know a pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So being in ketosis, I have a lot of fat that I have access to. At least 10 pounds that I could burn and do that. That's 20 days worth. If I was fasting, 20 days worth of calories that I have on my body, because by fasting, you burn a half a pound of fat a day, which would be, about 1,800 calories. Right. And that's been proven by, multiple places. And it's been verified by Dr. Jason Fung, who wrote the book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here, but think about this. If you carry too much weight, whether it's muscle or fat, look at the taxation on your system, the pressure on your suspension system, your skeletal structure, your joints, your muscles, those type of things, right? Look at the taxation on your heart, which is like the oil pump for your engine. If you have grown so much, whether by fat or muscle, right? Your heart is having to work harder than it was designed to for your frame. Initially, the engineers that designed the engine that goes in your car, they gave you a certain thickness of viscosity of oil that goes into your engine, that pump. That now all of a sudden, imagine if you made that oil pump in the engine in your car pump double the amount of oil or 50% more to cover more space, because your body is now bigger than what it was designed to do. Your engine was now bigger than it was designed to be. How often would you have to replace oil pumps, right? And if you're dehydrated on top of that, your blood's thicker than it was supposed to be, and your heart's having to pump harder than it was designed to, and pump to more areas, push it out further than it was designed to, because your body says, okay, we've kept this fat for so long, we're going to have to support this fat and this muscle by growing new blood vessels. So now you've grown more blood vessels, you thickened by being chronically dehydrated, which over 70% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. You thickened the oil, thickened your blood, right? And now you're struggling, your heart is struggling with each beat to get blood out, because you are actually increased the demand on the pump. Okay. Think about that. Your body should match your design in your frame. Okay. It should. Blue zones, food for thought. They don't CrossFit. They don't run. They don't go to a gym. They don't lift weight. They don't body weight. They don't run marathons. They don't do triathlons. They don't do those type of things. They move. They do not have in their life, these people who live over 100 years old, any type of supplement to make up for the lack of movement during the day. How can we think that by standing or sitting in front of a computer, lack of moving, sitting on a couch, watching TV, doing all those type of things, that we can make that up in a 30, 45 minute, 1 hour trip to the gym. We can't make it up, right? Now, granted, there are benefits to exercise, happy molecules, endorphins release, the runner's high, all those different things that can happen, but it's not a substitute. It's just a supplement, right? Like, for instance, if you don't eat enough broccoli to get vitamin C, right? Or fruits and vegetables and whatever, to get those phytonutrients. And, you can't make that up by taking a vitamin C supplement. That's just not the same thing, because you're missing the microbiome on that plant. You're missing the phytonutrients, the plant nutrients in that plant. You're missing the chlorophyll. You're missing all those things. You take a white vitamin C capsule, you're getting vitamin C, but you're not getting the chlorophyll that was in that broccoli. Look how much vitamin C is in broccoli, and then tell me why you should be eating that more. And then also increasing plant diversity, right? So you can feed your gut microbiome. All those things are happening. Now, granted, I love working out. It's meditative for me. It's fun for me. I love doing it. Like, I worked out yesterday. I strapped on my blood flow restriction bands on my legs, and I did 4 sets of deadlifts, Hindu squats, and skipping steps coming up and down the stairs from the second floor, and also did some neck strengthening exercises as well, right? Today, I'm planning on doing some other exercises, right? And I love working out. I absolutely love doing it. But that doesn't mean that you have to game the system to where you grow to where your body doesn't match your frame. So I think of horsepower to weight ratio when it comes to that. All right, so let's go into this. Scale's not the best way to do it, to determine your weight. BMI, we already covered that. Not the best way to do that. I think the best way to do this is a combination of body fat percentage and a waist to hip ratio. Now, body fat percentage you can buy for $7 on Amazon. Some plastic body fat calipers, and then you can Google simply about how to use them. Watch a YouTube video on how to use them, and then plug your numbers. I do typically 3 places, right? The ones that I do, and I don't remember the name of the style, but I do 3 places, right? Let's see here. All right, I've already done that. 3 places. So basically, a spot here on your chest, right? For guys, right? I don't know for women. I haven't ever done that, but you pinch on your chest, right? And you put that number in, right? Then again, and then just above your hip pointer, on your pelvic, right? Just above that, about an inch above that, you do that. And then on your quad, right? And then you put those numbers in and tell your body fat percentage based off your age. Now, granted, my son and I, the last time that I did this, had almost the same exact numbers. And because he was 18 and I'm 48, it showed that I had a 5% higher body fat percentage than he did, just based off age, thinking that I've lost muscle. And so I don't think it's completely accurate as well, depending on if your chronological age and your biological age don't match up. So if you're like younger than your biological age, your chronological age, if you're younger, right, than what your age is, right, based off the testing that you've done, then that may not match up as well, right? So you may have to you maybe use the number that you actually are based off the testing, if you have that testing done, versus actually doing that. But waist to hip ratio, there's been so much studies done on this showing that visceral fat is fat that is on your belly, and also that is packed around your organs and stuff like that. And so your hip to waist ratio is something that can show longevity and predict longevity. And so basically, if you don't know how to measure this, you would get one of those like circumference tapes, or maybe like a tape measure that is used for I'm trying to think of the actual term, like for sewing or things like that. I used them in racing go-karts where we would measure circumferences of tires. And for staggers, which you don't need to know about all that stuff, I'm not going to get into it, but you measure your smallest part of your waist, which is typically above your belly button, and then the widest part of your hips. Now, for men, it is 0.95% or 0.95 or lower is low health risk. 0.96 to 1 moderate health risk. And if you are 1 or higher, so if your belly, your waist is bigger than your hips, right? You are going to I just got a message from Farmer Lee Jones. That's really cool. Go look up Farmer Lee Jones. I interviewed him on the show, and you can get some super nutrient dense food shipped straight to your home because he is the chef's farmer, and super cool. So I'll have to check that out and see what he's got to say. But or if your waist is bigger than your hips, then you're at high risk. Now for women, now this is a flawed way of looking at this too, because it depends on body shape, right? Depends on body shape. And, you may have heard that, there's a different type of body shapes like apple shaped and pear shaped and those type of things. So this is flawed as well. They're all flawed, but using a combination of these is the best. And I think that's why body fat percentage is important, why waist to hip ratio is important as well. So women, 0.8 or lower, right, is a low health risk. 0.81 to 0.84 is moderate, and 0.85 are higher, right? But because typically women have larger hips than guys, right? Guys are, more like rails, and where women have curves and those type of things. But what happens is that someone could be overweight. A woman could be overweight and pear shaped, and her waist to hip would show low risk, but because her body fat percentage is high, she would be at higher risk, right? So you have to use a combination of things for this. It's just food for thought. And, with that. And now basically what happens is that if your horsepower to weight ratio is off, if your body mass is higher than what your skeletal structure or your frame was designed for, you're stressing out multiple systems in your body, right? And not to mention the mental side of this, about how you're comparing yourself to the people that you see on Instagram or magazines, or, body shaming, or any of those types of things that might be happening, right? And how bad you feel about being overweight or any of that type of stuff. And so Mitch Marin just sent me a message. I had Mitch on the show too, right? Talking about career wellness, right? So check out that episode. He's a recruiter for Goodwin. And so just got a message for him as well. I'm taking a sip of coffee here. So this is important. This is super important. It impacts circulation, impacts your suspension system, your joints, your muscles, your strength of your skeleton, all those type of things. And it actually, I think, is an indicator of your overall health, right? And so your body should match your frame. Meaning that you should not carry excess, I think, for longevity purposes. And this is what I talk about. I talk about health span. And the positive side effect of increasing your health span is an increased lifespan. I'm not saying just for sake I'm trying to live like Dave Asprey, 180 years old, or, Tom Bilyeu, I want to live forever. I'm not saying any of those things. My parents both got cancer. They were 55 years old. My grandfather, my dad's dad, passed away from cancer at age 62. I'm turning 49. I'm embarking on that decade of my life. My dad's 3 best friends also got cancer. 2 of them prostate, 1 got colon cancer, and they all passed away in their very early 60s. The common denominator between all of them was diet, lack of exercise, and toxin overload, right? And so what can I do to increase my health span? I can change my diet, change what I put in my body, change what I put on my body. And I can also increase my detox pathways by supporting my liver, kidneys, those type of things, and of watching what I put on and in my body. But I also, right, can exercise, I can stretch, I can, because all that helps with those things too. You can increase your cardiovascular piece of the puzzle, right? That helps, with that, and also stay at a healthy weight and match my body to my frame. We are all individuals, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you want to accept this or not. We are all doing an experiment of 1. N equals 1. And you can put your name as in the N spot. S equals 1. Scott equals 1. What works for me may not work for you, right? I've been intermittent fasting for 9 years. I love doing the Wim Hof method. I love, also breaking a sweat. I love working out. The way that I exercise is going to be different than the way you exercise. I love eating keto. I love sometimes eating 100% plant-based, And I still love sometimes eating, I'm very flexible, right? In terms of that. I love plant diversity. I'm a foodie. I love working in restaurants. I sometimes read books like this by my friend Hal Wright, The Whiskey and Distilled Spirits of Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming, right? Really good friend of mine wrote this book, and so look, got his signature right here. So I read and I understand those type of things, right? I also, like, yesterday I talked about breathing. I wrote all this stuff about breathing, right? I talk about mindset, all those things that I love or may not be things that you love, right? But the thing is that you got to find your own way. This show and this brand and my message is not about a one size fits all prescription. Your body has to match your frame. Your body doesn't have to match my frame, right? You don't actually have to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning or be a night owl or a wolf, as Dr. Michael Bruce would say, the sleep doctor, right? I'd be a night owl like I am, right? No, you have to find your own circadian clock and your own natural rhythms and amplify those so you can be the best you, right? Now, there'll be similarities with people who are early birds will all read the book about how great it is to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and follow Jocko Willink on LinkedIn, Navy SEAL, who wrote the book Extreme Ownership, and look at his watch and be like, yeah, he got up at 4:32 this morning, was in the gym at 4:33 and breaking a sweat. I'm just been asleep for 3 hours at that point, and a lot of times. So that's not the time for me to get up in the morning. So you have to find your own way and forget that there's this one size fits all thing. Keto's a tool, vegan's a tool, plant-based is a tool, paleo is a tool. All these are tools. Exercise are tools, right? At some point, you need to work on flexibility. Sometimes you got to build strength, right? If you sit behind a computer and that's your job and you love your job and that's the way you do it, then you got to find your way. But just understand that if you're overweight or you have too much muscle, you're actually negatively impacting your when I say too much muscle, I don't know. I don't have a number what too much muscle is because, there's actually one doctor, and I don't recall her name, but she talked about how muscle is a storage just like fat is. And I know that as we get older, we will as we get older, we can actually lose muscle. But my acupuncturist, he said this. He goes, only hinges that don't move rust. And we've heard this how many times that we've heard this is as people get older, it's easier to get down on the floor than it is to get up. So why don't we actually exercise on and use and get up on and down off the floor anymore? Right? That part of our muscle, range of motion, that part of our joints are not being used, right? And so it's hard to get up. We're overweight, we're not strong enough. We don't use those muscles. We don't use that range of motion anymore. Why? Because our kids are not on the floor anymore. They're grown and moved. We don't ever get down. The lowest we get is the recliner, right? And so it's really, really interesting. All right, John Jensen. John, thanks for watching the show today. And I saw a news report this morning that says COVID-19 death rates are 10 times higher in countries where most adults are overweight. The report was released yesterday by the World Obesity Forum. I actually saw this in the very beginning. I think it was on Joe Rogan's show. He had a infectious disease expert on, and he talked about this is when Italy was just going off, and Italy was shut down because they have a very old population in Italy, and that's where in northern Italy, and that's where they were getting really hit by COVID. And he actually said this. He goes, America is going to get hit because we have 77%, 77% are overweight and obese, right? And so that's an underlying health condition, being overweight. And so I think the first thing that people should pay attention to, the first thing is mindset around health span and longevity, right? And lifespan, health span and lifespan. Number two is their weight, right? So the first physical thing we should pay attention to is, are you at your ideal weight for you? That's the first physical thing we should pay attention to, because how many fat and obese old people do you see? Look at the blue zones. Look at the people who live in the blue zones, right? They're not. They're active. They move. They're not overweight, right? They're not. And so, John, thanks for putting that in there. That's an amazing stat. 10 times higher in countries where most adults are overweight. Look at our children these days. Look at how young type 2 diabetes is impacting our children and teenagers today and how overweight they are. Um, you know, we went outside and played, right? But now the NFL's got this 60 minutes outside a day and do that. I mean, I remember recess. We were playing tetherball. We were playing capture the flag. We were chasing people. They were chasing us. We were doing all those type of things, and I used to run, right? My mom was a elementary school. I used to run a lot. And let me tell you this story. And I haven't really talked about this much, but my mom was my elementary school lunch lady. And there was some good things about that and some bad things about that. One is I had to ride with her to school, and I was at school at 6 a.m. So that gave me a lot of time. And our PE teacher, Mr. Pace, had this program where you could run, and it was just, I think, a way for us to learn the metric system. But we would get certificates for how many kilometers we ran in a year. And I ran it was in January. And there's this other guy, Danny Pine. I was just like, wow, I can't remember that name. We were in the newspaper, the local newspaper, because we had both ran 200 kilometers by the time we got to January. But I had an advantage. I got to school at 6 a.m. So I would just go out to the playground if it wasn't super cold, and I would run. I would just run around the track and keep track of how many laps I had. I just ran all the time. And then during recess, I would run sometimes and those type of things. And so I'm not, I love racing and things like that. I was on the track team in middle school and that type of stuff, but wasn't fast enough and wasn't any of those things and kind of awkward and that, those type of things. So racing go-karts was really my thing. Played basketball a little bit, played baseball a little bit, but I loved the aspect of that. So, I've been interested in like other types of things like mountain biking because I live in the mountains and those type of things. But my point being is this, right? Is that the most important thing that we could do for our health is actually get to our optimal weight, right? And when I say optimal weight which is a combination of the scale, which is not the best indicator. BMI could be another piece of puzzle to look at. Body fat percentage using calipers, right? And looking at waist to hip ratio. Now, I have noticed that when I've gotten really, really, focused on doing the ab roller, remember those things, the ab roller, right? That if my core muscles start growing, right, my waist to hip ratio gets off. So you got to use all of these as indicators for that and to show what your true health is. So yes, World Obesity Forum. I'll look this up, or maybe John, if you can drop a link in the comments to this particular study, if you have that, that would be absolutely amazing. Or the article, that would be that, or DM it to me if you're still watching the show. I love to share that and do that. Anyway, I'm at 40 minutes here. If you guys got any questions, drop those in. My name is Scott Stanfield. I am the modern longevitarian. Your body should match your frame. And this is about, again, another declaration episode that there's no one size fits all way of looking at this. This is about you finding what works best for you, where you are today, right? The diet that works for you, the exercise program that you love doing that you'll do again tomorrow, right? And it may be walking, right? There's a study that showed that walking burns more fat than higher intensity exercises like running. We think, hey, I'm going to go run. Well, let's think about this. If I was 40 pounds overweight and I decided to go run, what is the impact, the impact on my joints, my ankles, my feet, my knees and my hips, right? Why would you go run when you are 30 to 40 pounds overweight? Does not make sense because you think that is going to be the way to burn more calories and burn more fat. But what happens is that when you do high intensity exercises, it releases cortisol, the stress hormone. And what is there? There's a cortisol insulin correlation. Okay. Insulin correlation. What does insulin signaling do? Insulin says store, when it spikes, says store fat, right? So when you go high intensity exercise like running, so all I got to do is Google this. Walking burns more fat than running, right? And there's studies that will show this, because what happens is you tap into your fat burning mode because you are not releasing cortisol and raising insulin that sends the signal to store fat. And when you spike insulin, it takes 13 hours for that insulin signaling to switch over that it's okay to burn fat. That's why intermittent fasting works. That's why low carb diets work. All those things are important in understanding what works, right? Because there's some science that it works for all of us, right? And so whether you're spiking insulin for lack of sleep, high glycemic foods, stress, and a high intensity exercise, whatever stress you're doing, whether it's a mental stress or because cortisol is what causes belly fat and all those type of things, right? Those types of things can impact your weight. And so you may have to mitigate stress, do lower impact type exercises, eat a lower carb diet, and make sure you dial in sleep by doing things by downloading my book called, Outstanding Landing, How to Get the Sleep of Your Dreams. It has 7 steps to sound sleep, which you can get from my website, sleep.strongforlonger.com. So all those things are in correlation and work for all of us. And you got to find your own Bruce Lee style martial arts to absorb everything. This is my favorite quote from him: absorb everything, keep what is useful, discard what is not, and then make it uniquely your own. And so what happens is that when I read a book on plant-based keto, and then I read another book on the Walls Protocol, and then I read another one on fiber fueled, and then I have the longevity diet down here, right? And then I'm reading things like the 4-Hour Body by I don't have it up here, but the 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. And then I'm reading articles and studies and all those type of things. I'm absorbing everything, finding what works for me, right? Discarding what doesn't work, and then making it uniquely my own, right? And that's the thing that you have to do by being your own health advocate. That's what you have to do. So I'm stepping off my soapbox. My name is Scott Stanfield. I am the Modern Longevitarian. This is episode 92. I want to say thank you for watching. And I want to say be brave, right? In honor of my dear friend Aaron, who passed away in a car accident. Be brave. And I want to say thanks for watching. Cheers. Let's roll the credits.